In our interactive news segment tonight on this Sunday edition, with me on the set is none other than David Pulkol, a former government chief spy in charge of the External Security Organization. Thanks, David, for joining me on this interactive news segment.
You call me chief spy.
It's now 2 years ever since the M23 faced a decisive military defeat in the Eastern Democratic Republic of Congo. And now we are here to discuss what actually ought to have played into their decisive defeat. But before we get to that, let us have a short clip into what happened on that fateful day when they were being flushed out by a coalition of the Tanzanian forces, the Angolan forces, and the South African forces, all commanded by a Tanzanian commander. Well, David, now I think you can see what happened on that fateful day. But many Ugandans don't know how this ought to have happened. Well, there are several factors, but people may not be in the know of them. Can you talk about the comprehensive military defeat, how this played as a significant factor to the demise of the M23 rebel group that ended up finding itself in some parts of Rwanda and Uganda?
Now, of course, events unfolded, and M23 captured Goma at a time when Ban Ki-moon, the Secretary General of the UN, and the World Bank boss were coming. And if you remember, the UN Secretary General decided that they are going to land in Goma, rain or shine. So Kampala and Kigali had to prevail on the M23 to withdraw. And then, of course, Ban Ki-moon landed in Goma and proceeded to Kampala. Ban Ki-moon had a message. Make this place, to President Museveni and President Kagame, make this space, okay, a space for peace and development. Here is the money, okay, the World Bank, for infrastructure, for development. But if you cannot deliver this, then the UN will have to use other means to defeat M23. So at that point, you could see that M23 listened more to Uganda, or because of the elderly statesman President Museveni is, and is such a regional peace broker. So they responded. But the UN Secretary General went ahead and presented a request to the UN Security Council to provide drones and approve an intervention brigade, a UN intervention brigade. You leave MONUC aside, but create an intervention brigade. And this was responding to what President Kagame and President Museveni have been calling under the Munyonyo negotiations. They were blaming MONUC for being a tourist force, for being just ineffective. And therefore, they were calling for a more effective intervention force. But of course, maybe they thought that that responsibility would fall on the shoulders of Kigali and Kampala. But unfortunately for them, it fell on the shoulders of Tanzanian Army, South Africa, and Malawi.
To what extent, David, I do understand that also the diplomatic issue was also another factor that made the M23 rebels to accept defeat and withdraw from their bases in the Eastern Democratic Republic of Congo. Now, if you can give us a brief insight as to how the diplomatic factor played into this issue, bring Uganda and Rwanda to their knees.
Kigali was restrained Of course, Kigali wanted to respond and push their troops to the border and saw that as a provocation. And Uganda also was prevailed over, if you remember John Kerry, if you remember William Hague of the British, who kicked in. And if you remember also the cutting of aid of some countries to Rwanda, and they put President Kagame under pressure not to intervene. And I think President Kagame and President Museveni responded very well in my view. Uganda, it was for different reasons, okay? You know, the homosexuality debate and that kind of thing later on. But for Rwanda, definitely it was linked to M23. There was also such a threat on Uganda if Uganda had not cooperated. But I think Uganda did a good job as an elderly statesman in this region, as a power broker in this region. And I think he needs to be praised for having taken a good decision for the stability of our country and for the stability of the region. I think it was good for President Museveni. Even if I was in his shoe, caught in that situation, I would have definitely acted in the same manner and brought those people back in order to ease tension. But had he not, then those forces, because for you to kill a blue element, you have actually attacked the entire UN.
Well, David, I do understand that there were several international summits comprising of presidents from the Great Lakes region that sat in South Africa to ensure that the M23 rebels are given amnesty and they withdraw. To what extent was that a slap in the face of President Yoweri Museveni, who was a key player with his counterpart of Rwanda, President Paul Kagame?
You remember the DRC delegation came to town. President Museveni even at some point went to sit in a hall ready to witness the signing. Even diplomats appeared there. But the DRC delegation said no. First of all, the DRC government had told M23 before they can come to Kampala to sign anything, they must denounce violence and they must promise the whole world that never again will they go into this type of armed confrontation. So, which M23 did. But unfortunately, at the time of signing, the DRC delegation refused to go to the room where President Museveni was to sign. They said they're not going to sign anything with a group that no longer exists. You can see that, which was a slap on the face of our own president, a slap on our own government. Because then the DRC government said, what we could do is to sign a separate document. Okay? Let M23 also sign a separate one. Let M23 sign a commitment to denounce violence, a readiness to go back home, and a readiness to be integrated, and never again will they be engaged themselves in any armed conflict against the government of DRC. That is what the DRC delegation wanted done. And then on their part, they would also sign another document agreeing that M23 are members of Congo, and they would be integrated case by case, and they will be given amnesty case by case. They said so because some of the elements in M23 were already indicted by ICC and they are wanted in The Hague. So they could not give total amnesty to such people.
Well, David, I understand that around November, the Ugandan government and the Congo army, senior military officers, converged at the Air Force base in Entebbe, where a ceremony was held, an amnesty ceremony was held, and former M23 rebel fighters were given amnesty certificates, implying that those who want to go back to Congo should go back and nothing was going to happen to their lives. But to the surprise of the two governments that were involved in this negotiation was that some M23 rebels did not accept getting these amnesty blanket certificates. What does this mean to the security of Uganda as a country?
But what Ugandans need to ask their government is, where are M23 now?
And this is what I'm trying to put to you.
Okay, so did you put them into cantonment, where they left loose roaming in the country? Are they in some barracks, where they put into some refugee camp? So where are they? What has happened to them? Because if our public money, our taxpayers' money is being used to keep them and feed them, then citizens need to know, under Access to Information Act, to know where these people are and what has happened to them. Have they been repatriated back to their country? Are they still here? So to this larger question also includes, when Tanzania decided to expel some Tutsi elements who they said were not Tanzanians. You remember they were pushed into Mutukula area with their cows. And instead of going to Rwanda, they came to Uganda. You remember that time? Yes. And now we must ask our government, where are these cattle keepers? We have not seen any new refugee camp with a protected kraal. So I think our government needs to explain a number of things. Where did these people who were expelled from Tanzania go? So which ministry of government of Uganda needs to explain? Then secondly, our Ministry of Defense or Internal Affairs or Ministry for Disaster and which deals with refugees, or a Ministry of Local Government which hosts refugees, somebody must explain to citizens, where are M23 and where are these refugees who came with their cows? Which refugee camp did they go to? Where are their cows?
Now, why are you convinced that this is not yet over?
Because three things. One, President Museveni's calculations and his handlers, those who handle President Museveni, like Kionga Crispus, the Minister of Defense, and those bag handlers, those briefcase handlers of President Museveni, and those who handle his brief, okay, thought that out of Munyonyo, they will be able to get the DRC government to sign an agreement for total amnesty for all those involved in M23 and total integration for all those involved in M23.
Right. Thanks, David, for being part of this interactive news segment. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.